Hello, hi, how are you? Today, we are going to talk about a wonderful, really cool game called Sorry We're Closed. Sorry We're Closed is a survival horror game that is basically angels, demons, inner self, mess, queerness, cool clothes, stylistically peak. I played this game and I just fell in love immediately. It stars a character called Michelle, who has not gotten over her ex after 3 years. 3 years! And is kind of sleepwalking through life when she gets chosen by the underling of the Duchess. She gets her third eye opened and now sees this whole other side of the world. She lives amongst angels and demons the whole time. They're always been there. And now, in order to get her life back, to move forward, hell, to even make her life better than it was before, she needs to go and find the Duchess's evil exes, take their third eyes, and defeat the Duchess. This game is so wonderful. The gameplay is really fun. It changes into this first person shooting aspect whenever you shoot, but is kind of a over the top, kind of old timey look that still looks really young and fresh and new because of the colors and the styles and the character design. The music in this game is so dope. Like, this game is incredible. And for those of you who have not played the game, now would be the time to stop the video, go play the game, and then come back. And then I can talk to you about my theory of Sorry We're Closed. I think it is a tale of self-love, self-acceptance, and embracing the darker parts of yourself. And it is all through these relationships in the story. This game, while it is a horror game, is deeply about relationships between two people. There are several couples in this game that we kind of observe, and we kind of look into a lens of what those relationships means, while Michelle is kind of on this journey of whether or not she can fall for the Duchess, the evil person that gave her the third eye that she has to defeat. I think this game is truly about embracing the darker parts of yourself so that you can not only make yourself a better person, but truly self-love is the key to self-acceptance and living a life worth living, and not just being, but experiencing joy. I definitely need to explain this for people who have played the game. We are about to get into spoiler categories. So even if you haven't played all the endings, I will be spoiling some of the endings. I think you should go and play other endings, please. I would love for you to see them and come back and watch this video, because we're going to get into it, and we're going to start by talking about the lovely relationships that we get insight in this game. Sorry, we're closed. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. If an inferiority is conscious, one always has a chance to correct it. But if it is repressed and isolated from consciousness, it never gets corrected. Carl Jung. Now, before we get really deep into talking about the relationships and the couples in this game, I want to explain my theory. Now, I have a theory here in which each couple, each person, represents the outer self and then the inner psyche, meaning that each couple is one person, and the inner psyche is the part of that person, that dark part of that person that they struggle to accept. I think that the game is trying to tell you that you not just need to embrace that darker side, because if you just embrace the darker side, that leads to another destructive end. You have to embrace it and heal it, love it, and learn to accept it in a way, but not indulge it completely. Um, I really believe this. I know it sounds a little matrixy, but honestly, speaking of the Matrix, I think this is all also a trans allegory. I think the darker side of yourself is only darker because the outer self is so set on rejecting it and suppressing it instead of exploring it. It's about exploring that darker part of yourself and not just a full embrace. And I think it's so interesting when you look at the game and the relationships in that way. So let's start talking about these relationships so that way we can see where my point is going. Let's talk about the relationship, shall we? The game starts where you are introduced to Michelle and Leslie, but it's not so much Michelle. So Leslie, Michelle's ex, is actually an actress in this very popular fantasy soap opera that is always playing in the background of the game. It is always giving us pieces and insight into this relationship that Michelle cannot get over after 3 years. Baby girl, you gotta let it go. 3 years is a lot of time, okay? But Michelle and Leslie in this scene of the TV show, it's kind of giving us this idea that this is what happened in their actual relationship because Michelle is watching this show because it's everywhere. And essentially Leslie is saying that Michelle has done so much to just try to acquiesce to what she thinks Leslie wants. She's always just caving into her feelings and never actually truly being herself. She's just trying to be what she thinks her partner wants. And that makes her not a great partner to be with. It's not real. It's a manipulation, a sad one. And it's not really interesting to be with a person who just does exactly what you want. Michelle is so desperate to be with Leslie that she's willing to cave any wants or needs just to go with the flow and stay with her. And it ultimately ended up being the end of the relationship. Michelle and Leslie kind of represent to this game about self-love and acceptance and fully embracing the parts of yourself that you're shameful of. Michelle, instead of embracing the parts of herself that feels shameful of, completely swallows them down and erases them, ignores them. And she's not really a true person. She has no personality anymore. The things that would make her special no longer exist. And her quest to hide that part of herself from her partner actually ended up hurting their relationship when she thought it would actually save it in the end. Now let's talk about Daryl and Oakley. I know what y'all are all thinking because Daryl and Oakley are seemingly so opposite. And there's no way that there's an inner self of Oakley that is Daryl or an inner self of Daryl that is Oakley. But honestly, I can't tell which one is the outer self. They are actually, as far as the way they run business, really similar. See, Oakley desires to be a successful business person, so much so that he trusts his very sketchy boyfriend that he is not even willing to introduce to his family, even though he's considering marrying this person. He won't introduce them to his family, but he will accept mystery meat from him without asking any questions. He can't trust this person to be there and supportive when he is running his business, but he needs him to be an essential part of it. When we are talking about running businesses, there are a lot of morals that you are willing to backslide on. And in the story of Daryl and Oakley, if you pick the path in which you tell Oakley that Daryl is giving him human meat, silent breed is people! Oakley basically really is like, what have I done? Closes up shop and leaves. And I think that is because he's realizing the lengths at which he went to make his diner successful and important was not acceptable to who he thinks and wants to be. Daryl, on the other hand, is so obsessed with pleasing this part of himself that he actually doesn't actually listen to what Oakley wants. He just gives him things and is like, this is it, right? This is the thing. Daryl is a sketchy guy, and Daryl does a lot of things to try to self-satisfy. He will do straight evil, throw people under the bus, people that he may even like, so that he can be successful and he can work for the Duchess and be on top. But he doesn't realize that those aren't the things that actually are making him happy. The one thing that he actually wants is Oakley, and he's not listening to the actual inner needs of himself. It's not about success. It's not about doing whatever it is to be on top, to being the toughest guy. If you actually want to make your inner self happy, just go get like a rodent and make him your pet. That is the thing that makes you happy. It's really interesting to me to discover and explore these kind of themes in which queer people are willing to throw other queer people under the bus in order to move forward in their own quest for acceptance. But in the end, it never works. Daryl is so willing to throw other people in his community, people that he likes. If you are nice to Daryl when you first talk to him, he's like, oh yeah, that's a cool chick. Too bad I'm gonna send her to the Duchess to get screwed over and probably she's gonna die. Bye, dead girl. And Oakley was totally fine and thought it was romantic when Daryl stole a recipe from the girl who sells pastries, which, by the way, Oakley has a diner. It's not just pastries. She's not even that much of like an opposition for him, but he does feel threatened by her existence. And he is like, I mean, I'm not going to use it, but I'm so happy that he thought of it and did it for me. There is a line, and the line is pretty far because it doesn't show up until we get to cannibalism.
Silent breed is people!
I also kind of want to discuss what happens to Daryl if you become the bad Mimi, the bad Michelle. And essentially, when I did that route, I not only told Oakley that Daryl was giving him people meat, I also took over his part of the business as the Duchess. And essentially, he's getting sent to become people meet, and he's the dead boy. And it's just very interesting to me, the fire that he's willing to play with and what it looks like when that same sacrifice happens to them. And that, like, that's an offer on the table for Michelle, is to throw her friends and loved ones under the bus for this success. And we also see this in the several relationships that we have with the Duchess when we see all the Duchess's exes. And we'll get to that later in the video, but Daryl and Oakley are two sides of the same coin. They are both actually big fat softies. Daryl truly cares for Oakley and truly cares about his little rodent friend. He put a little hat on him, and Oakley is kind of cutthroat. He doesn't want to seem that way. It's the secret part of him that's Daryl. It's the secret acceptance. He's not going to ask where that meat came from, okay? And I think it's interesting to me that not only of who Oakley is hiding Daryl from. The whole community knows that Daryl and Oakley are together, and everybody's really confused. But Oakley keeps Daryl secret from his family. It's two separate lives that he leads. In business, Daryl is someone he is so happy to tell everyone around that he is in love with. But when it comes to seeing his family, that is the secret side. It's very much like American, the home. You have your home life and your work life, and you are two different people. A lot of people do that. The severance of it all. Not me implying that Daryl is Oakley severed, but like, am I wrong though? The love that Daryl and Oakley have for each other is arguably the cutest of the relationships. I mean, I have a thing with Robin and Benedict, but that's different. But it's arguably the most outwardly loving relationship. And what ties them together is business and money. And I think that's interesting.
I'm not the victim, I am the system. I'm not in the
Now it's time for Death Eater and Samuel. Shamuel, Shamueli. See, I would feel bad about not being able to pronounce his name, but the creator doesn't know how to pronounce the name either. So.
I don't know if it's Chamuel. We never knew how to pronounce that name.
I still don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay,
That makes us feel better.
amazing.
So the devs don't know, and I don't know either. So it's Shamuel. So Shamuel and Death Eater are a very interesting case because they have already embraced the other side of themselves, but they feel a deep shame in it. They are not proud of what and who they are on the inside, but they're still going to do that. And instead of like finding a way to love that part of themselves, they just abuse themselves. They literally murder the outer self or inner self. I think Shamuel's the outer self. They literally murder that part of themselves as a punishment, as a way to kind of reject the inner dream eater, the evil part. It's a lesson. It's trying to reject that and saying, hey, if I treat you this way, then you won't come back. But you've so deeply invested and you're so deeply in it that there is no going back. The only way to do that is to rid yourself of that shame. And the only way to rid yourself of that shame is to be better. To me in this game, it's not saying that their inner self is completely evil and baseless and like you need to just accept the evil part of you. It's that you need to love all parts of yourself so that that darker portion of yourself is in check, because why would you feel the need to partake in such dark and very cruel activity if you are actually fully embracing yourself? The key to not being this evil you is to fully embrace it, love it, so that that outward motion isn't destructive, and not just to other people, as we see with Daryl and Oakley, but to yourself. This is what self-hate looks like, is Shamuel and Dream Eater's relationship. There's no going back. Shamuel is too deep in it. There is no becoming an angel again. If you try to become an angel again as Shamuel, you just die and you're no longer on the plane. And Dream Eater continues to exist in his evil form. But if you accept it, if you accept the love and you finally get Dream Eater to accept Shamuel has gone too far and can never go back to being an angel, and there is no better life for him, there is no better options than Dream Eater. It's the option that he has already chosen time and time and time again, is when you see them at the end and they're just two humans in love, quietly visiting this community that they're actually deeply embedded in, but they don't remember. And you see them actually happy with each other when you just accept that this is a part of you. The evil, the darkness isn't so dark anymore. You don't partake in these very dark, very disgusting, harmful activities when you have a love for yourself that you don't feel so much shame for, that you want to punish yourself and everybody else involved in. I do really appreciate Shamuel's and Dream Eater's relationship, because it does show that your negativity to yourself isn't just damaging to the people around you. So many of the other relationships we see, it's damaging to people around them. But you truly get to see how that damage to yourself looks with these two. That, like, it's like low-key the most dramatic Shakespearean story here, with the angel and the demon who are in love, and the demon is just convinced that the angel needs to go back to heaven and live a better life, but that isn't a better life the angel doesn't want that. And here's another example of someone not listening to what the person they love actually wants, and just has decided what they want and just like kind of fausts it on them because they just insist that they know better. It's kind of that inner battle with yourself where you like fight for what you think you should want and have instead of fighting for what actually makes you happy. So much of this kind of, and I am not trans, but so much of this kind of does reflect a kind of inner fight for people who are on their way to a transitioning. What is a better life? Is it better to just live swallowing these feelings that you know to be true for the rest of your life? And there is a certain point where there is no swallowing the truth anymore. You've already come to see what your life could look like if you accept it. And if you swallow it, you're dead. And I really do love Shamuel's and Dream Eater's relationship, even though Dream Eater is the worst. Now it's time for my favorite couple. It's Robin and Benedict. I love Robin and Benedict. First of all, I love Robin. They are so fucking amazing. Like, their demon transformation is basically the same outfit, except sexy panties and their hooves. Phenomenal. And Benedict is just like that kind of Zelda nerd boy. Like, I know in his human life, he definitely wears Zelda t-shirts. You know what I'm saying? But Robin and Benedict, to me, actually represent the fact that some people know that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, and that they may be different, but there's nothing wrong with that difference. And they're constantly fighting to live freely without any kind of impediments. But the world keeps working against them because of what the world thinks of it. But they know that there's nothing wrong with this. I don't think Robin didn't tell people that they were with Benedict because of some sort of shame or anything. I think Robin didn't tell people about Benedict because they didn't want to dare to dream that their relationship could be more than stolen hours here or there, because Benedict has to constantly watch that door. And that's another thing, is that Benedict had to sacrifice his love for Robin for the betterment of everyone else. Benedict doesn't get to be who he is because everyone else has to come first by watching this door. And Robin is fighting tooth and nail to be who they are so they can get this key, so that they can be themselves full time. Bringing it back to the trans narrative. Poor trans folks constantly fighting a system that works against them to be able to transition. They know who they are. It's the rest of the world that is questioning who they are that is a problem for them to reach their sense of euphoria. The money being a barrier to me is what this represents. Laws being a barrier and having to fight them tooth and nail, being that barrier. And Robin and Benedict represent that so beautifully and perfectly. And if you don't give Robin the key, I speedrun this game now, and the fastest way to do this is to never give Robin the key. And you don't even use the key. It's just shorter to not have the little few seconds of conversation. And honestly, it hurts my heart every time to do this to Robin. It really does. It really does. Especially after that dog fight for it. They are so dedicated to being who they are. And it's very interesting to see Robin and Benedict when you see on another side, Dream Eater and Shamuel, who are like literally murdering themselves to not do what they already are doing. Like, it's already too late. Like, there's no turning back for you. but they still think they can have access to the privilege that they had before. And it's too late. And Robin and Benedict already know. They're like, there's nothing wrong with us being in love. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just the world that has a problem with it. Ugh, this game is so beautiful. It's so good. It's all right. The couple of the hour, the Duchess and Michelle, two sides of each other. The inner self, the deepest soul, is the Duchess. To Michelle, who is just kind of ghost walking their way through life, doing the same things every day. If you get an ending where everything goes back to normal, that to me is actually another bad, sad ending. I'm just going to start talking about this relationship by explaining and talking about what happens if you choose to love the Duchess in a romantic way. So in the game, there is a path where you can be in love with the Duchess, and you do all of the fighting. You go through the Duchess fight. And after the fight is over, the Duchess says to Michelle, "Oh my God, is this what love is? This is exhausting. I'm exhausted. This hurts. I hate this. You know what? You win. You're free." And the Duchess freaking leaves and disappears. And that's that. That's the end. You fight, like, Duchess wants you to love her. And then it realizes throughout this battle that this is real love. This is what she's been looking for. This is the real thing. And now that she actually has it, she's like, "No, girl, this is too much. I'm exhausted. Why does it hurt so bad? I'm sore. My mind. No, thank you." And she dips on you. And that's that. And Michelle is just kind of left there. Like, what? Anyway, you continue on to the, 2 weeks later, 1 week later, whatever the time card says. You go back to work, and then you see a human that looks suspiciously like the Duchess. It's the Duchess in human form. The Duchess has turned into a human, does not remember the events of what happened, but is full force flirting with Michelle. And you can see that this is the start of something beautiful. The Duchess and Michelle are very interesting two sides to each other, because you can also choose as Michelle to work with the Duchess, not do love, but be her underling. And you become this like really cheesy, sketchy version of yourself. And Robin is like, eye roll. Like, this is a terrible choice, but whatever. It's clear to me that you and Robin are friends for the time being, but I don't think it'll last the more you do what you have to do to work for the Duchess. And it's just really cringy when you see who Michelle is when she wants to better her life fiscally instead of like finding true love. But to me, when you look at Michelle and the Duchess, you have to look at the ways Michelle is trying to self-soothe, and the ways the Duchess represents that is Jenny, Matilda, and Gabriella. Jenny is a look of, instead of getting the love and acceptance that you need for yourself, for your inner self, you look for that through money. And that is the decision you make to be the Duchess's right hand. So that ties with an ending that you can choose that isn't so happy. We see what happens to Jenny, and we see that it's not satisfying to the Duchess, and that's not actually what's going to help you reach your happiness or your euphoria. Yes, I'm bringing it back to the trans allegory. Okay? And then there's Matilda, the famous girl, who is completely looking for not love, but admiration. She is looking for a number one top fan who will do whatever she says. And not just whatever she says and how she says it, but like actually like wants to be praised in a way. And if you don't praise her in a very specific way, then you have a problem. And now that's just the Duchess in general, right? Like the Duchess doesn't even know what she's looking for in a partner. She just knows that that's not it. And now you have to die. You have to die. Matilda, her and the Duchess's endings are just like very intertwined. By looking, instead of for deeper, more meaningful relationships, they're looking for people who are just going to, you know, be brown nosers for them. And that is not satisfying to anyone, clearly, because the Duchess is still searching. And then there's Gabriella. Gabriella represents both looking for revenge against those who hurt you. The idea that if you get back at your parents who hurt you so deeply and weren't accepting of you and verbally abused you, that is where your happiness lies. And you see how Gabriella devolves and just thinks that she's the happiest person, but there's nothing about it that's happy. It's sad. And you can see Michelle look at her with sorrow, because you know that Michelle is thinking about Leslie and how maybe there's been a lot of situations where she just wished she could get back at Leslie for hurting her the way that she did. And it's very interesting to see that last moment between Gabriella and Michelle and having that conversation when Michelle realizes like revenge isn't going to be anything for me. And that's down to, you know, having to deal with Daryl as well. It's not going to make me happy in the end. Ultimately, what the Duchess is looking for is hard and it hurts. But in order to get there, and not only will reach your own happiness, but it would also help not be so damaging and outwardly cruel to everyone around you, including yourself. I find the Duchess's and Michelle's relationship to be one of the more interesting ones, mostly because of the end fight with the Duchess, where you have to play these puzzles and you see the other panicked Michelle's chasing you down with their anxiety and literally bringing you down with it. There's so much in that. There's so much in these relationships that are so meaningful. And I think it's very interesting. And when we bring it back to Leslie, when you are offered the opportunity to get back with Leslie, if you choose that option, you become like Lucy, in which Lucy never talks, and you think it's just because she thinks she's too cool. But Lucy never talks because she's possessed by a demon, and that's just how it is. And now you're the next possession. And so trying to go backwards is just deepening the Michelle that I talked about earlier in this video, in which she truly cannot decide and do and have and show what she actually cares about. She literally has to go with the flow because someone else is in command of her body. She no longer has it. And she doesn't even get to say anything about that. And so there is no going backwards to Leslie. There's only going forwards. And you know that money isn't the thing. The choice of working for the Duchess isn't going to actually bring you happiness. It's just gonna be cringy and sad. It's not fans. It's not a fan. Matilda isn't the way. Matilda being tied to getting back together with Leslie in your mind, it will lead to nothing. You'll just be possessed by a demon and you lose your voice and control of who you are. It's full dedication to that. And it's not revenge like Violet. There's nothing in that for you. It's truly, fully self-love and acceptance. And I know a lot of people are watching this and wondering how a self-love for Duchess, that's a bad look to say that your inner self are terrible people like Daryl and Dream Eater and Duchess. But my point is that those people would be less, not even so damaging and so cruel to others if they can be accepted by themselves. And once they are, we see what happens when you make those choices in game. And no, they're not perfect people, but they're not evil. They're not doing the most damaging things to the people in their communities anymore. When Daryl and Oakley get together, Daryl is out. He is no longer working for Dream Eater. He is free, and he is no longer doing all of those things. And like, you just get you get to see what these people are like when there's true self-acceptance. And I am so enamored with this game, because to look at a love of self through angels and demons, where we make it this black and white good versus evil, but then you meet the angels and the demons and they're just people. They have just as much capacity to be good or bad as any of the human characters do. I love the way that we've used kind of this, Christian mythology to represent what it means to truly have self-acceptance and fully embracing the darker side of your psyche and loving it so that it doesn't do damage to everyone around you, and especially yourself. Anyway, please go ahead and play Sorry We're Closed if you haven't. Even if you've been spoiled, there's so many endings. There's so many fun little interactions that I have not talked about. And go sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think about my theory of Sorry We're Closed. Tell me where you think I'm right. Tell me where you think I'm wrong. Kindly. Because if you're gonna be rude about it, I will block you. But I would love to have a discussion in the comments about this game. And what you think of my theory. I think I just, everybody play this game. It is just as cool as it looks. Hi, it's Sapphire Ghost from the editing room. Yes, the editing room is the exact same space that I record. I just wanted to sound cool. Anyway, I just wanted to come in and announce, because I just found out that I am speedrunning this very game that we're talking about right now, Sorry We're Closed, at the Juneteenth speedrunning event on Games Done Quick GDQ. I will be speedrunning this game and Fear the Spotlight, another game that I am very tempted to make a video about. We're not going to get into that right now. Anyway, I will be speedrunning Sorry We're Closed on June 22nd at, 8:29 p.m. And I will be speedrunning Fear the Spotlight on June 21st at 9:56 p.m. So if y'all would like to watch me speedrun this game and talk about how much I love it even more, check me out on GDQ on our Juneteenth event, and make sure to check out all the other runners as well. It's just a phenomenal event. I'm very excited to be a part of it. All right, thank you. Bye. Hi, it's Katia, also known as Sapphire Ghost 914 all over the internet. Thank you for watching my video, and be sure to follow me on my other social media. I go live streaming these video games that I talk about on Twitch and TikTok on Wednesday through Friday. We have theme days, as you can see in the little heart there, so come check me out. I'm also on Blue Sky, in which I live skeet my gremlin thoughts, and be sure to check me out there on TikTok and on Twitch. Thank you so much for watching my video. See you next time. Bye.